Hi, I'm astrologer Penny Dix and welcome to another Astrobite. And as I promised you yesterday, we have Mars going direct. It actually went direct because it's the 24th of February at 0200, and that was Universal Time or GMT. And so I didn't talk about it yesterday because, Mars needs, I think, its own Astrobite. So that's what I'm giving it. So yes, my goodness, at last, every single planet is direct. This is a momentous day. This is an important day because I think we're really going to feel a sense of someone has taken their foot off the brake. And even though we may not be going forward very quickly, there will be a sense of energetic movement. I think on a personal level, we're really going to feel much more energized as this energy starts to shift. And Mars doesn't actually go back into Leo until April the 18th. So we've got to get all through March and way into April before it goes into Leo. And then if you remember in April, I think it's round about the 26th or 27th, we get the next and final opposition between Mars and Pluto, with Pluto at 2 to 3 degrees of Aquarius and Mars at 2 to 3 degrees of Leo. But today, it's direct, and it's actually trining as it goes direct Mercury, our planet of communication, which, if you remember, I talked about yesterday. And so that is kind of also a main aspect. So Mercury is saying, come on, let's get going. And Mars is saying, yes, I can see land. I can see it way in the distance, but we can get there. And a nice big bonfire so that Mars can really warm himself up in the fires of Leo. Mercury in Pisces waxes lyrical. And Mars is saying, okay, well, let's actually see if we can be a little bit constructive about this. So this is where, for instance, if you're doing or indulging in some creative writing, you'll start to get more ideas and more direction in your ideas. I think you will just get a sense of how you want to present things. Suddenly, it's interestingly, I'm trying to do some writing myself for my own book and the book I'm doing with Sarah. And I've just been like blocked. I sit there with a chapter heading and I'm just, don't know. Nothing going on here at all. Lights on, no one's home. So I'm going to be very happy when Mars goes direct because I really do think it's going to help me enormously. So for any of you out there who are also involved in creative pursuits, this is the green light to start actually really finding you get some action into the communication side of your creativity. What's also interesting is I think this Mars direct is going to help in the relationship sector. Even though Saturn is also trining Mars, it's 2 degrees ahead, but it's still a trine. Saturn is kind of saying, let me help too. Because Saturn, I'll get it right in a minute, Saturn is still conjunct Mercury. So Saturn is really helping put some structure into the creativity that Mercury is coming up with, the ideas and the content. And as much as the Piscean energy is trying to sort of dissolve it and just let it flow away, Saturn is saying, let's see if we can really get some kind of structure into this now and make it into something creative and basically that can be used in a constructive way. And Mars, as I said, is not going to get back into Leo till April. So it's going to be in what's called its shadow zone for quite a while. And so we may find ourselves revisiting certain events, situations, problems that came up over the last couple of months. I'd go so far as saying everything leading back probably almost into last summer. Because Mars was last opposite Pluto at the beginning of November 2024. And that, if you remember, was around the time of the American election. And so I think there's going to be some revisiting in some kind of context with things that didn't get resolved since then. So that's my take on Mars Direct. And I will talk about Mars Direct at various times as the aspects come up. And I just in general think it's like going to be such a relief. Now, the interesting thing is when it does go direct, the moon comes up to oppose it. So the moon rules Cancer, remember, where Mars is. So the moon is kind of also just saying, yeah, don't get too big for your boots. Don't kind of get carried away, because the moon's in Capricorn. This is cold and stoic and kind of ordered. And so the moon is saying, look, yes, the water is carrying you forward now, but all in good time. Because remember, Capricorn is so much about timing, as is Saturn, which is trining Mars. So I think what I want to say is over the next probably 6 to 8 weeks, there will be situations that get revisited. And we've got a Mercury retrograde coming up as well, but I'll talk about that another time. And with all the cosmic energy in Pisces, there's a tendency for us to, within this revisiting, get a bit fraught, a bit wound up, a bit directionless, a bit paranoid. So remember to keep grounding yourself. Mars is now direct. It wants to show you that actually if you are able to somehow allow the tears to flow, because sometimes when we release that energy, whether it's metaphorical or just in a big sigh of, okay, that feels better. I think we can make progress now. Even if it's just in that sense, then it could be really, really powerful. So the word I've chosen for today is direction, because Mars is going forwards. So it has a new direction. Even though it's going to be going back over old ground, it's good for us. The other thing that I meant to say is Saturn now at 20 degrees of Pisces is in new territory on this particular journey around the zodiac wheel. So it's really moving into a new area of itself. So people who have personal planets at 20, 21, 22 degrees of Pisces are really going to feel the effect of this. And it'll be a sense of being slowed down, of being asked to be circumspect, of being asked to reflect. And it can bring a certain amount of confusion and irritation with restrictions that you feel that are imposed on you that you don't see as fair. And that is one of the, if you like, it's a test that Saturn is going to be giving you, a kind of lesson and a test. So what about the word direction? Because of course I found some quotes. Well, Henry David Thoreau said, "Go confidently in the direction of your dreams. Live the life you have imagined." That really fits in with Pisces energy, doesn't it? Dreams, Pisces. Imagination, Pisces. So do it. Please, everyone, follow your dreams. Whether we've only got one life or not, we only remember this one while we're in it. So we better make the most of it. Live your life. Follow your dreams. William Shakespeare said, "It's not in the stars to hold our destiny, but in ourselves." Now, I would interpret that as the stars show us the way. They show us what our destiny can be, but we have to do something to get ourselves there. If we just sit back and do nothing, nothing is what we're going to get. Tony Robbins said, "The only impossible journey is the one you never begin." Oh, well, that's good old procrastination, isn't it? Well, there's no excuse to procrastinate now Mars is direct in Cancer. You're going to have to move forwards. You're going to have to really start moving. An unknown quote is, "You are always one decision away from a totally different life." Now that is the gift and the opportunity, I also think, that Pisces gives us. You're always only one decision away from a totally different life. Naeem Calloway said, "Sometimes the smallest step in the right direction ends up being the biggest step of your life." And Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "Do not go where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail." I love that, because that's being independent and thinking outside the box and saying, I'm not going to follow the herd. I had a very interesting discussion with a client earlier about about individuality, really, and how important it is to, not always follow the crowd and the herd, but to think, actually, if I go this way, it'll be quicker. And that's the way we adapt and survive. If I go this way, it'll be quicker. Richard L. Evans said, "Your direction is more important than your speed." Mars going direct, being at 17 degrees for quite a long time yet to come, and Mars not moving back into Leo till April the 18th is exactly that. Your direction is more important than your speed. Mars is going direct. And finally, we have Yogi Berra said, "When you come to a fork in the road, take it." I like that, because that's also Pisces, intuition. It's, do I go left? Do I go right? Maybe I should go on the road less travelled, which of course was a brilliant book by M. Scott Peck. So I hope some of those resonate with you. I think it's an interesting kind of look at what it means to either have direction or not. And Mars is about direction. So I hope today you really, really get a sense of that new direction that Mars is taking us in, even though you may be revisiting some places that were difficult, uncomfortable, but you'll be seeing them with different eyes, new light. And Pisces, all the energy there is going to help with that. So on that note, thank you so much for joining me for today's Astrobite. I really look forward to seeing you next time. Remember, please like, subscribe and share and comment. Love your comments. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now. Bye.